live for fear, and the church is never to be about fear. For the church is not the resting place of the saints, it's a hospital for sinners. And so how do we get out of the fact that we can't solve all the problems? There is a broken world, there is evil, there are legitimate things to fear. Well, then we attack that, we attack our anxieties with action. We do for one what we would do for all. So you do for the stranger or the other or the person who thinks differently than you, you do for them. Like the Good Samaritan did, like the 2 disciples on the Emmaus Road that welcomed Jesus, you do for them what you would do for all. And don't allow the anxiety and the fear of this subsection or the fact that you can't solve all the world's problems to stop you from acting. God, grant me the courage to change the things I can. Change the things you can. Go and be witnesses like Jesus said. And then finally, knowing that you can't change everything, like the Serenity Prayer says, then you have to accept the things you cannot change. Well, how do you do that? Release your cares to God. Because Jesus says, peace be with you. You release your cares to God. You face your fears with faith, belief, trust, and commitment. You examine your assumptions in light of facts. Use that reason part of the brain. Don't let fear paralyze you. It is there as a gift. When you have intuitions or you're in bad situations, and there are legitimate times that we are, then get out of there, get away from them, do the fight or flight and flight. But most of the time, don't be afraid. Attack your anxieties with action. If you sit and do nothing, the situation just gets worse, and the worst case scenario is spin on you. Instead, be like Jesus, go and be witnesses that he calls the disciples to be, and then release your cares to God. Peace be with you. Hamilton says this, and I love this line. We must speak up, stand up, and work for what is right. Encourage to change the things I can change. But when we're done, when we've done all we can in pursuit of what is right as we understand right, we have to release our concerns to God. Adam Hamilton writes, I don't believe God dictates the outcomes of elections or is pushing buttons and pulling strings on our national politics. God allows individuals and nations to do foolish and sometimes evil things that are the opposite of his will. Just read a little bit of the prophets sometime in the Old Testament. All kinds of bad kings came along and did things against God's will. God didn't want that. But God, as Hamilton says, has a way of working through the evil around us and those who participate in it and advocate for it. God specializes in forcing good from evil, of bending the foolishness of humans to accomplish a higher purpose. Trusting this helps him to feel hopeful about the future of our nation. No, Henny Penny, Chicken Little, the sky is not falling. God is our refuge and strength, a help always near in times of great trouble. That's why we don't have to be afraid, even when the world seems to be falling apart. I will admit, I sometimes, when I watch the news, say out loud at home, the world is falling apart. Maybe you do too. But I'm also reminded as a student of history, people thought in 1968 with the assassinations of MLK and Bobby Kennedy that what was happening. The world was falling apart. People thought during Vietnam, the world was falling apart. People are always thinking in the 1980s, in the Cold War with the Soviet Union, some of which you don't even know some of you here don't even know what the Soviet Union is. It's Russia now, right? That world was falling apart. If I live my life always like the sky is falling, the world's falling apart, then I am not a person of faith. I am not facing my fears with belief, trust, and commitment. I'm not examining the fact that I don't have to be afraid of the other because there are good people everywhere who just want to be heard and loved and hear their stories. I'm not attacking my anxieties actions. I'm saying because the world has big problems and big leaders, and by the way, many of our wars are caused by fear, false events appearing real, and so then we start wars with each other. I'm living in that and not doing anything when I need to do for the one what I would do for the many, as Andy Stanley says. And then with all that, I better know that I can't change everything. I change what I can, as the Serenity Prayer says, and I release my cares to God. That God specializes and forces good from coming to evil, of bending the foolishness of humans to accomplish a higher purpose. Sisters and brothers in Christ, our closing hymn today is going to say this. Christ is risen and forever lives to challenge and to change all those whose lives are instrumental.